The night my sister was rushed into the ICU, my phone lit up with 37 missed calls from my mother. For years she never called me first. Not when I was struggling. Not when I was breaking. Not when they chose her over me, every single time. But that night, suddenly I was the one they needed. And as I stared at the glowing screen in the darkness of my apartment, one thought echoed in my mind, cold and steady. Now you remember I exist. Before I begin, if stories about betrayal, family wounds, and hard-earned justice hit close to home, take a second to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel reach more people who need to hear these stories. My name is Hayley, and tonight, I want to know something personal. Where are you listening from? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just a story. It's something I lived through. And it changed me forever. I grew up learning one simple truth. In my family there were two categories. My sister Emma and everyone else. Mostly me. Emma was 2 years younger, but you'd never know it from how my parents treated her. She wasn't just the favorite. She was the center of gravity, the sun. Everything revolved around her moods, her wants, her tiny inconveniences. If she cried, dinner stopped. If she failed a test, the teacher was blamed. If she wanted something, it magically appeared. Meanwhile, I learned early how to make myself invisible. I still remember the first time it hit me clearly. I was 9. It was my birthday. I had spent weeks talking about this one thing, a simple art set, nothing fancy, just a box with colored pencils, brushes, paints. I wanted it so badly because drawing was the only place I felt seen. That evening, my parents called us into the living room. There was a big wrapped box on the table. My heart pounded. "This is for you," my mom said. I ran forward, hands shaking, tearing the paper open. Inside was a brand new tablet. I stared at it in confusion. "I don't understand," I whispered. My mom smiled. "Emma been wanting one for months, but we thought it would be nice if you gave it to her as a birthday gesture. You're the older sister, you should set an example." My chest tightened. "You want me to give my birthday gift to her?" Emma was already bouncing beside me, eyes sparkling. "Please, Hayley, you're the best sister ever." And then came the look from my father. That look that said, "Don't embarrass us." So I swallowed the lump in my throat and handed it to her. Everyone clapped. They called me selfless. They called me mature. But that night, I cried so quietly into my pillow that even I could barely hear it. That was the moment something cracked inside me. And it never fully healed. As we grew older, the pattern only got worse. Emma wasn't just spoiled. She learned to weaponize it. By high school, she knew exactly how to twist every situation in her favor. If she forgot homework, she'd cry and say she was stressed because of me. If she got in trouble, she'd tell my parents I distracted her. And they believed her. Every time, I became the scapegoat. The difficult child. The one who was too sensitive. Meanwhile, Emma developed a talent for manipulation that was almost impressive. She could switch from sweet to cruel in seconds. In public, she was charming. At home, when no one watched, she whispered things that still echo in my mind. "You know why they love me more," she once said calmly while we washed dishes. "Because I'm worth loving." I froze. She smiled at my reflection in the sink. You're just extra." By the time I left for college, I thought freedom would save me. I thought distance would heal everything. I was wrong. Because even miles away, my family's favoritism followed me like a shadow. They paid for Emma's private university, her apartment, her car. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, and ate instant noodles for weeks. When I finally gathered the courage to ask for help, my mother sighed. "Hayley, you've always been independent. Emma needs us more." That sentence burned deeper than anything else. Because what she meant was simple. Emma deserved help. I didn't. But the real betrayal, the one that changed everything, happened when we were both in our 20s. It started with a phone call. Emma was crying hysterically. "Hayley, I need you, please, I messed up." She said she had maxed out her credit cards. She said debt collectors were calling. She said she was terrified. "I swear I'll pay you back," she sobbed. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to trust her. But she was still my sister. And some stupid part of me still wanted her to care about me. So I drained my savings, every single rupee I had, and transferred it to her. I remember staring at my empty bank account afterward. My hands were shaking. But I told myself, this will finally make her see me. This will finally make them appreciate me. I was so naive. Because 3 months later, I learned the truth. She hadn't used the money to pay debts. She used it to fund a luxury vacation with her boyfriend. 5-star hotels, designer shopping, beach photos flooding her social media. When I confronted her, my voice trembling, she didn't even look guilty. She laughed. "Oh my God, Hayley, relax, you'll earn more, you always do." I felt something inside me snap. But what hurt even more was what happened next. Because when I told my parents, they defended her. "She's young," my mom said. "Don't create drama," my dad added. And Emma, she just smirked at me across the room, like she'd won again. That night, something changed permanently inside me. I stopped crying, stopped begging, stopped hopping. Because for the first time I saw the truth clearly. They weren't going to change. Emma wasn't going to stop. And if I wanted peace, I would have to stop being the victim. But I had no idea then just how far things would go. Or that one day, the same sister who ruined my life would end up lying unconscious in an ICU bed. And the entire family would come running to the one person they had spent years destroying. Me. The first time I truly understood what it meant to be alone wasn't when Emma stole my savings. It was the silence that followed. Not one apology. Not one message asking if I was okay. Not even a fake attempt to smooth things over. Just nothing. It was like I had quietly disappeared from their world. I spent the next year surviving in a constant state of exhaustion. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, worked weekends doing freelance design work, skipped meals to save money. Some nights I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the ache in my bones from working 16 hours straight. And the worst part, it wasn't the physical pain. It was the humiliation. The memory of Emma's laughter replaying in my head like a cruel loop. "You'll earn more, you always do." I started noticing how deeply that sentence had shaped my life. In their eyes, I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't a sister. I was a resource. The reliable one. The quiet one. The one who could endure anything without complaint. Because I always had. I tried cutting them off completely. Blocked Emma. Muted my parents' calls. For 3 months I lived in silence. And slowly, something strange began happening. I started breathing again. The tension in my shoulders eased. I slept through the night for the first time in years. I even laughed sometimes. I remember one evening sitting alone on my tiny balcony, watching rain drip off the railing. And thinking, maybe this is what peace feels like. But peace, when it comes after trauma, never lasts long. Because people like Emma don't tolerate losing control. She showed up at my workplace, unannounced, like nothing had happened. I was behind the counter when I saw her reflection in the glass display. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, expensive coat. She looked like she'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. While I stood there in a worn apron, hands cracked from detergent. "Hey sis," she said brightly. My stomach twisted. "What do you want?" She pouted dramatically, wow, still bitter. I said nothing. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You really going to stay mad forever over some money?" "Some money?" My jaw tightened. That was everything I had. She rolled her eyes. "God, Hayley, you're so dramatic. You should actually thank me." My hands went cold. "For what?" Her smile sharpened. "You learned a valuable life lesson. Don't trust people blindly." I felt the blood drain from my face. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Emma didn't just lack empathy. She enjoyed hurting me. And then she delivered the real reason she came. "I need another favor." I actually laughed. It came out harsh and broken. "You're unbelievable." Her expression hardened instantly. "Fine," she snapped. "Be selfish, that's what you are anyway." The words hit like a slap. Because it was the exact opposite of reality. And we both knew it. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "You know why no one likes you, Hayley?" I froze. "Because you're weak," she whispered. "You let people walk all over you. Even now you're just standing there taking it." Her eyes glinted. "And deep down you like it. Being the victim makes you feel important." Something inside me trembled violently. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I simply said one word. "Leave." She stared at me surprised. Then she smirked. "Whatever, don't come crawling back when you realize you need us." And she walked out. But her words lingered. "You're weak." That night I sat alone in my apartment, replaying the conversation over and over. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a painful question. What if she's right? Not about enjoying being hurt, but about allowing it. Because every time Emma crossed a line, I had forgiven her. Every time my parents dismissed me, I had stayed quiet. Every time they chose her over me, I had accepted it. I wasn't responsible for their cruelty, but I had been responsible for letting it continue. That realization burned. It felt like peeling skin off an old wound. From that night forward, something inside me began to shift. Slowly, quietly, dangerously. I stopped reacting emotionally, stopped chasing approval, stopped trying to explain my pain to people who never cared. Instead, I started observing, listening, noticing patterns, Emma's weaknesses, her habits, her dependencies. Because the truth is, people like Emma always believe they're untouchable. And that arrogance, it blinds them. Months passed. I rebuilt my savings, got promoted to a managerial role, started designing for clients on the side. For the first time I had stability. And Emma, she was spiraling. Her social media still looked glamorous, but whispers started reaching me through mutual acquaintances. She was drowning in new debts. Her boyfriend had left her. She was partying heavily, making reckless decisions, burning bridges. I didn't interfere. I didn't reach out. I simply watched, like someone studying a storm from behind reinforced glass. Then came the night everything changed. It was past midnight when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. A frantic male voice exploded through the speaker. "Are you Hayley, Emma's sister?" My heart stopped. "Yes, what happened?" "She collapsed. We're at the hospital. They're taking her to the ICU." The words felt unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. My chest tightened. What do you mean collapsed? There was a pause. Then he said quietly, overdose. The world tilted. I sank onto the floor, the cold tile pressing into my knees. Emma, invincible, cruel, untouchable Emma, was lying unconscious somewhere between life and death. And then the second call came. From my mother. Her voice trembling, desperate. Hayley, please come, we need you. Need me. The same people who never chose me were suddenly calling me their lifeline. My hands trembled as I stared at the wall, because in that moment, I felt something I never expected. Not grief, not panic, not even anger. What I felt was a cold, quiet clarity, like standing at the edge of a cliff and finally seeing the entire landscape below. Because deep inside, I knew this moment wasn't just a tragedy. It was a turning point, a moment where the balance of power had finally shifted. And as I slowly stood up, one thought echoed through my mind. Steady, unshakable. For the first time, they need me more than I need them. And this time, I wasn't going to play the same role. The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. You know that sharp, sterile scent that seems to stick to your lungs? Like the air itself is warning you that nothing good ever happens here. That's what it felt like when I walked through those sliding doors. Cold, heavy, unforgiving. For a moment I just stood there, watching families huddled together in quiet panic. And it hit me. This was the first time in my life I had ever entered a crisis without being the one blamed, without being the one expected to fix everything silently. This time, they were waiting for me. I spotted my parents immediately. They looked smaller than I remembered. My mother's hair was disheveled, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. My father sat stiffly, staring at the floor like a man who had just realized the world didn't bend to his will anymore. When my mother saw me, she rushed forward and grabbed my hands. Hayley, thank God you came. Her fingers were shaking. I felt nothing. Not warmth. Not comfort. Just a distant, numb awareness that this was the same woman who once told me Emma deserved help more than I did. What happened? I asked calmly. She overdosed, my father said hoarsely. Sleeping pills, alcohol, we don't know how much. There was a pause. Then my mother whispered something that made my chest tighten. She left a note. My stomach dropped. What kind of note? My parents exchanged a glance. My father hesitated before speaking. She wrote that she felt abandoned. The word echoed inside me like a hollow knock. Abandoned. For a split second I almost laughed. Because Emma abandoned. The girl who had never heard the word no in her entire life. But then my mother added quietly. She said no one cared about her anymore. And suddenly, something inside me shifted. Not sympathy, but understanding. Because for the first time, I realized Emma wasn't collapsing just from addiction. She was collapsing because she had lost control, lost her audience, lost her ability to manipulate everyone around her. And without that power, she didn't know how to exist. They took us to see her. The ICU was dimly lit, filled with soft beeping sounds. Machines breathing rhythmically. Monitors blinking like tiny, indifferent eyes. Emma lay in the hospital bed, pale and motionless. Her skin looked almost grey under the fluorescent lights. The confident, cruel girl I had always known looked fragile, small, human. For a moment, a memory flashed in my mind. Her at age 6, laughing while we played in the backyard. Before everything twisted. Before favoritism turned into something toxic. And for a brief second, I felt grief. Not for who she was, but for who she could have been. My mother squeezed my arm. "She needs us, Hayley." The words lingered in the air, and something deep inside me responded. Not with pain, not with anger, but with clarity so sharp it felt almost surgical. Because in that moment, I finally understood the truth. Emma had always controlled the narrative. She painted herself as the victim, and I had been cast as the villain. But now, for the first time, the story had flipped. Over the next few days, I stayed at the hospital, not because I felt obligated, but because I was observing, watching the dynamics shift in real time. My parents were terrified, exhausted, lost, and slowly, they started turning to me for decisions. Should we talk to the doctors about rehab? Do you think we should hire a specialist? What would you do, Hayley? Each question felt surreal, because for the first time, my voice carried weight, real authority, and I realized something important. Power doesn't always come from revenge. Sometimes it comes from simply stepping into the role you were denied for years. But Emma wasn't unconscious forever. On the 4th day, she woke up. I was alone in the room when her eyelids fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused. Then her gaze landed on me, and something dark flickered in her eyes. Not relief, not gratitude, resentment. "You," she whispered weakly. I felt my pulse slow. "Yes, me." She swallowed painfully. "Where's Mom?" "At home, resting." A tense silence filled the room. Then she said something that confirmed everything I had suspected. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" The accusation hung between us. Cold, sharp. I met her gaze calmly. "No," I said quietly. "I'm just finally seeing things clearly." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you've won?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I stepped closer to her bed and spoke in a tone so steady it surprised even me. "This was never about winning, Emma." Her lips curled slightly. "Then what is it about?" I held her gaze. "It's about consequences." For the first time in my life, she had no comeback, no manipulation, no control. Because lying in that bed, connected to machines, she couldn't rewrite reality. That conversation was the turning point, not because of what she said, but because of what I felt. For the first time ever, I wasn't afraid of her. Not emotionally, not psychologically. She had no power left over me, and that realization was intoxicating. Over the next weeks I made a decision, one that would change everything. I wouldn't destroy Emma. I wouldn't scream or expose her publicly, because that would only feed her victim narrative. Instead, I would do something far more devastating. I would let her face reality, completely, without shields, without excuses, without me protecting her from consequences. And most importantly, I would finally tell the truth. All of it. To everyone. Because here's the thing about toxic family systems. They survive on silence, on denials, on pretending everything is normal. Once truth enters the room, everything collapses. And I was finally ready to bring the truth into the light. But I had no idea just how explosive that moment would be, or how completely it would shatter the illusion my family had lived inside for decades. The first time I spoke the truth out loud, my hands were shaking, not from fear, From release. Because silence is heavy. It presses down on your chest for years. It steals your voice slowly. It makes you doubt your own memories. And the moment you finally break it, it feels like stepping into air after being underwater too long. It happened 3 weeks after Emma woke up. The doctors had stabilized her. She was no longer in immediate danger, but she wasn't going home yet either. Rehab discussions had started. Tension filled every room like static electricity. My parents were exhausted, emotionally raw, and for the first time, they were listening, really listening, because they had no control left. One evening, we sat in the hospital family lounge. Dim yellow lighting, the low hum of vending machines, the smell of stale coffee. It felt like the perfect place for truth to finally surface. My mother looked at me, her eyes red and tired. "Hayley, we don't understand how things got this bad." That sentence, that denial, it cracked something open inside me. I leaned forward slowly. And for the first time in my life, I didn't soften my words. "You don't understand," I said quietly. My father frowned. "No, we did everything for her, we supported her, we loved her." I nodded slowly. "Yes, that's exactly the problem." They both froze. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. But I didn't stop. Because I knew this moment would define everything. "You didn't support her," I said steadily. "You protected her from consequences." The words landed like stones. My mother shook her head weakly. "That's not true." I held her gaze. "Yes, it is. Every time she hurt someone, you made excuses. Every time she lied, you blamed others. Every time she crossed a line, you cleaned up the mess." My father's jaw tightened. "You're exaggerating." And that was when I did something I had never done before. I listed everything. Every memory. Every betrayal. Every moment they chose her over me. I told them about my 9th birthday. The art set I never received. The tablet I had to give away. My voice trembled slightly when I said it. I learned that day that my feelings didn't matter. My mother's face crumpled. She whispered, "I don't remember that." "I do," I said softly. "And I remember crying alone because no one noticed." I told them about college. Working 2 jobs. Skipping meals. While they paid for Emma's luxury apartment. "You told me she needed you more," I said quietly. My father stared at the floor. I told them about my savings. How I trusted her. How she used it for a vacation. My voice hardened slightly. "And when I came to you, you defended her." Silence filled the room. Heavy. Suffocating. Because truth has weight. And once spoken, it cannot be taken back. My mother began crying softly. "I didn't know you were hurting this much." That sentence, that painful, familiar sentence, almost made me laugh. Because it revealed the core truth. They hadn't known. Because they had never looked. I leaned back in my chair. And for the first time, I said the words I had carried for decades. "You didn't just favor her," I said quietly. "You sacrificed me to keep her comfortable." My father inhaled sharply. My mother covered her mouth. And in that moment, I saw it. The illusion cracking. The narrative they had lived inside. Finally collapsing. But the real confrontation came later. With Emma. She had been discharged from ICU and moved to a recovery room. When I walked in, she was sitting up, staring out the window. Her body looked weaker, but her eyes still carried that familiar sharpness. "You told them everything," she said without turning around. I didn't deny it. "Yes." She slowly looked at me. Her expression was unreadable. For once, she didn't smirk, didn't mock, didn't attack. She just studied me, like she was seeing me for the first time. Why now? She asked quietly. The question hung between us. I took a slow breath. Because silence protected you, I said calmly. And it destroyed me. Her eyes flickered. For the first time in her life, she had no script, no manipulation ready, just raw reality. You think this fixes anything, she whispered. No, I said gently. It just stops the damage from continuing. Her gaze dropped, and something unexpected happened. Her shoulders shook slightly. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just quietly, like someone who had finally run out of energy to pretend. I never thought, she murmured. Thought what? That you'd ever stand up to me. Her honesty startled me, because it confirmed what I had slowly realized. She had never respected me, because I had never forced her to. That day didn't end with an apology. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no cinematic forgiveness, because real life rarely works that way. But something more important happened. The dynamic changed. Permanently. My parents stopped enabling her. They required therapy as a condition for financial support. They stopped dismissing my experiences. For the first time, they apologized. Not perfectly, not instantly, but sincerely. And Emma, she had to face consequences, debt repayment plans, rehab, therapy, accountability. For the first time in her life, she couldn't escape reality. And me, I finally felt something I had never known before. Peace. Not because Emma suffered, not because I won, but because I was no longer invisible, no longer powerless, no longer silent. Months later, my mother said something that stayed with me. We thought loving her more would protect her, she whispered. But it almost destroyed her and you. I nodded quietly. Because that was the truth. Favoritism doesn't create strength. It creates fragility. And fragility eventually breaks. Looking back now, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel clarity. Because revenge doesn't always mean hurting someone. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is truth, boundaries, and refusing to carry burdens that were never yours. Emma's ICU stay didn't fix everything, but it forced reality into the open. And once truth enters a family, nothing stays the same. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or pushed aside in your own family, know this: your silence is not loyalty, and your pain deserves to be seen. If you believe that standing up for yourself is the strongest form of justice, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share your story in the comments. And before you go, tell me something. Have you ever been the one your family overlooked? Because you are not alone. And your voice matters more than you know.